Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the second Double Dragon game for the NES only this time. We're not doing the sort of arcade combo thing. And, well, we're doing this in honor of the fact that after completing Double Dragon Neon, Styles and I decided to do the remake, I guess if you want to call it that, of Double Dragon 2 for Xbox Live Arcade, otherwise known as a black hole from which no one with any gaming taste whatsoever ever returns. It's bloody terrible. Oh my god, it's bloody terrible. That series is ongoing right now. Go check it out if you want. If you're one of those sick buggers who likes to laugh at people playing bad games for your amusement, well, there's plenty to laugh at there. But in light of that, I thought I would take a look at Double Dragon 2 for the NES, which was actually really, really good at the time. And I said it before, you know, this is a really weird series as a whole. In the last video, we showed the arcade version of the original Double Dragon and the NES version of Double Dragon, both of which were fairly popular in their own ways, but which were actually very different in many ways as well, especially from a technical standpoint, and in some cases from a mechanical one. Double Dragon 2 is no different. This was also developed by Technos Japan, like the first one, but as you'll see when we get it started here, it is a very, very different game from an aesthetic and in some ways design perspective as well. And this did come out in the arcade too, but the arcade version was a lot more like the arcade version of Double Dragon 1. It looked the same, it played the same for the most part, didn't really run a lot better. It was basically just more of Double Dragon, whereas this one, despite being by the same company, is very, very different from its NES predecessor, and I think a lot better. It has some flaws, but I overall think it plays a lot better, and it's just a lot more interesting. But we're going to show this off here. So, you have single-player mode and two different two-player modes, so there is no weird tacked-on arena fighting mode in this one, thankfully. The two different two-player modes are simply whether or not you can hurt each other. So you play mode A, you can't hurt each other, mode B, you can, which makes things a lot more interesting. And you have three different difficulty levels. Practice, which doesn't let you actually finish the whole game, Warrior, and Supreme Master. So we're just going to start the normal way. Yeah, I don't know why they attempted to put a narrative in this, but apparently there was a nuclear war, and now New York City is overrun with gangs, which, given that this game came out in the 80s, is a little weird because New York was already overrun with gangs, but whatever. But they have a little bit of a narrative here, a little bit more of an intro, these little still things with this kind of weird, not horrible translated dialogue, but not great either. But as you can already hear in this, there's a little bit of weird technical jank here, which is that every time the screen fades, listen. See how the music? See, hear how the music stutters like that? So yeah, that's kind of weird. But now we must go into the turf. So, right off the cuff, you can already see quite a bit of differences here from the NES version of Double Dragon 1 and this one. Interface looks a lot different. Scores are along the bottom. There's no power-up system this time. The color palette is clearly a lot different. It's a lot darker. The animation, the frame rate is definitely lower. The game doesn't run nearly as silky smooth as the other one. But you can see there is a fair amount of difference here. And the one thing I really think is deficient about this game, I think this game is far better than Double Dragon 1 NES in most ways. But the one way in which I think it's really deficient, and I'm not sure why, is the music. So you're sort of hearing it here. You can also see that scan line along the bottom there. That's not the recording, that's the game. That was a really big piece of jank in this one as well. It had a few weird graphical engine glitches. But you're hearing the music in this, and it's not bad. Like, it's got that nice little You know, it's got that nice little bass line and stuff. kind of a nice beat to it. But you'll hear, compared to the original Double Dragon, which had that very almost Capcom-like super high energy, high intensity score, this just sounds kind of flat. You know, it's kind of flat, kind of muted. It's not bad. It really isn't bad. All right, got a weapon here. Whoops. Yeah, you may wonder why I'm kicking in the wrong direction like that. We'll get into that. So unfortunately, after certain encounters, though, you do still lose your weapons, which sucks. So, but yeah, the soundtrack to this game, I don't know. It's not bad, but it just sounds a little muted and a little weak. A lot of Technos games on the NES after this use this sort of style. Like even games I really liked, such as River City Ransom and stuff like that, use that kind of just more subdued styling. And I'm not sure. I like, this isn't bad, but I'm really not sure if it's if I like it as much as I did with Double Dragon 1. It just doesn't seem as good. But the other thing that's weird here, and it's actually kind of good once you get used to it. Well, as you can see there, if you get in close and punch guys, it's much easier to get grabs on them. But you're also going to see this. So see how you got your punch, your jump, and then your kick. And you might be seeing here, the kick goes the opposite way in this game of the way you're facing as a... Whoa, cartwheel. So it looks a little weird. The kick goes the opposite way in which you're facing. Oh, yeah. Now, that may seem a little bit strange and counterintuitive, but in many ways it actually works pretty well. And the main reason I think they did that, and I actually like it, is simply put for crowd control purposes. If you're getting attacked by both sides, which you will be in this game... Here's our first boss. So, like, listen to this boss music. You know what I mean? If you go back to Double Dragon 1 and listen to that soundtrack, this just sounds... Like, again, it's not bad, but it's just something... It just doesn't sound as soulful and full of life, I guess. It's a weird thing to say. And yeah, this boss does this weird thing. He disappears, his helmet falls, he comes back, and that's his indicator that he's mostly damaged. So I'll hit him some more, and then it will disappear for good. Yeah, I don't get it either. Ugh. So, and you see here that... Yeah. So, the I don't know. The music is just... It's just weird how... Like, here's the victory, you know? It's alright, but... I don't know. So, yeah, and it's definitely, I guess, not as memorable, but it's all right. It's just weird that they changed so much. I mean, I'm definitely going to assume it's different composers. But it's still got that nice little, you know, just that nice little beat to it, and it's just kind of a little bit funky, you know what I mean? And it's, I don't know, it's kind of good. I don't know, it's okay. Anyway. So yeah, that's the other weird thing about the combat mechanic, is that your punch and kick go in opposite directions, and it does take a little bit to get used to, especially if you're coming straight out the other game. But if you are getting attacked from multiple sides, it is actually invaluable, because it allows you to do this, and while facing that way, deal with the guy behind you as well, which works really, really well. So it's a little weird at first, but especially when you're in two-player, it actually works really, really nicely. Now we got... There's the weird neon green chopper that comes in, and those bullets will actually do a lot of damage to you, so you got to give it a second to get people off there. Ooh, nice. And you see, this is the other cool thing that I like about this game, is there are lots of opportunities to do kind of stylish kills like that, or stylish damage at least, where you knock guys off of ledges and ladders and things like that. And that may seem like a really simplistic, like, seriously, you're getting all, you know, much ado about that. But back in the day, when you were dealing with brawlers in the 8-bit era, that was quite significant. Being able to actually not have invisible walls on the end of the arenas, bye Chopper, and knock guys off like that was not insignificant. That was a pretty big deal. So, yeah, why do I think this game is better than the original Double Dragon? Well, it's interesting, right? Because you can definitely see quantitative differences between them. And as I said, even though it's by the same team, you would almost think these two games weren't by the same team. They are by different publishers. This one was put out by Acclaim as opposed to the last one, which was put out by TradeWest. I'm not actually sure why they decided to change it up for the sequel. This was back when Acclaim actually put out some... Oh, yeah, these guys suck. This was actually back when Acclaim actually did put out some good games as opposed to the largely shovelware garbage that made up the majority of their catalog in their later life. So there's another thing there. You do have the ability to do, it's a little tricky to pull off, but you can do a button combination in the air that will allow you to do that little spin kick. And if you can do a jump like that when you're facing towards guys, you actually can do a sort of a knee bash. There are additional moves in this, and there actually were more in Double Dragon 1 that I didn't really go over very well. You'll never escape from us! Grasp! This level actually kind of sucks, and you're going to see why in a minute. The neon-filled night. Battle in the chopper. And you'll see why this is a bit of a pain. So it's interesting that... Yeah, that's why. Woo! I love doing that, though. Very satisfying. It is interesting that Technos decided to take the game, at least on the NES, in such a very different design direction from the previous title, and indeed from the arcade as well. I mean, the NES version of Double Dragon 1 was very different from the arcade as well, but this, I would say, varies even more significantly. Oh, God. Yeah, see, that's why this bit can really suck a lot. But the cool thing about this is you can either stay here and try to fight these big enemies, or you can actually, if you want to cheese it, you can position them over here and do that. You won't get as many points, but also makes it easy to clear out the chopper nice and quick. That is a really short level, as you can plainly see. Why are we going to an undersea base when we were dealing with street gangs? Double Dragon. Don't ask questions. And now you see we've... Moving on. And now you see that we've mixed up the color palette even more. And that's kind of what I liked about this one, is the environments did vary a little bit more in this. They mixed the color up. They kind of tried to do some neat stylistic things with it. They really decided to do things quite a bit different with the NES version. And I would think that might be because the NES version, and the NES is maybe ultimately where Double Dragon met with more popularity and financial success for Technos, because the arcade version of Double Dragon 2 really felt to me like it was playing it safe. It was really just, here's some different levels, some slightly different, you know, sprite palettes, and that's kind of all we did. Whereas this really almost feels like a ground-up rewrite, if you want to call it that, for the series, because... Oof, that's a brutal elevator noise. Because, yeah, it looks different, it plays different. And again, in some ways, it is almost kind of deficient to Double Dragon 1. It's the music, while still very memorable and still catchy, is definitely not as good as Double Dragon 1. And it plays slower. Some would say that the combat mechanics in this are actually not as fluid, especially with the lower frame rate that the game operates under. Yeah, this... Also, it does this sometimes where the enemy basically... You're basically getting cheesed by the computer, which is just lame. There we go. But some would say the combat mechanics are actually not as good. Oh, screw you. Because of the lower frame rate, and the controls definitely feel a little bit mushier. It feels like there are kind of, I guess, a bit of an input lag almost, and a little bit of an input delay that I think can make the combat not untenable. You know, you do have to get used to it a little bit, but it's certainly more than adequately playable. But this was, at least among the group of people I played with, I just remember this being a lot more popular. We actually, back when I was a kid, we kind of were like, when it came to Double Dragon 1 on the NES. But I remember when this game came out, we played so much of this. We beat this game multiple times in co-op. Multiple friends and I beat this game multiple times in co-op. We beat it with friendly fire on and off. We played a lot of this game. And I remember we had a lot more fun with it, and there was just something about it that just felt like a better experience, even though I'm not showcasing it great here because I'm just not doing all that well. Yeah, it's odd, because this was, Right, you have to jump that gap. You know, just kind of a subdued game over, kind of like, meh, just not much to it, and then you're back here. It's very strange. Like I said, this series as a whole, just the way it progressed in many ways is strange. You know, it feels like in some ways you could almost say like Technos got lucky with it, and that they actually had something that was really not all that good. And I'm not talking about any one particular entry, I'm just talking about the sort of series as a whole. You could almost say that, you know, they maybe had something that actually wasn't all that good, and that they kind of got lucky. Or at the same time, you could also say, and this is kind of what I like to subscribe to, is that they just tried to be a little bit more experimental and tried to do things a little different. You know, they tried to go, hey, we're going to put this game out in the arcade, but we're also going to do a home version, but let's mix it up and let's do things differently. We've got a different publisher. We had a lot of success off our last game, so we have the ability to be, you know, to do things a little different and to sort of play around with the formula and with the technology that we have. And I mean, as you'll see when I showcase other Technos games going forward, they learned the NES very, very quickly. Like, you could say the Double Dragon was perhaps not a grade A technical feat on the NES at the time, but you'll see later on that these guys got really good with this platform really, really fast and were able to make it do some pretty impressive things. So it's just a weird series in its progression. I actually probably will do, maybe I'll do it for the next episode, maybe not. There actually was a Double Dragon 3 on the NES, which I will admit I have never touched. I know it exists, but I've never played it. So maybe I'll do that next time. I would be very curious to see what the difference there is, and to see if it's kind of just a continuation of this, or if they chose to go like they did with this versus Double Dragon 1, if they just chose to go in a completely different direction and do something even newer and crazier and different with it. Maybe it was because, maybe it came out late in the NES. I don't even know what year it came out. That's how uninformed I am of Double Dragon 3. But maybe it came out late in the NES life cycle, which is why I don't think it was very popular, because no one I know played it, that's for sure. And I don't remember it really having any real fanfare back then. And it was the last numbered Double Dragon game for the most part. Technos went on to do other stuff after that, and obviously, as many people know, they are sadly no longer with us. They are kind of succeeded by Million Company, which is basically just the company that owns all their own IPs and licenses them out in sometimes good ways, like Double Dragon Neon, and in sometimes horrible, abominable ways, like Double Dragon 2 Wander of the Dragons for the Xbox 360. But I still like this. I actually wouldn't mind sitting down with Styles and playing through this again. I don't know, maybe I'll see if he wants to do that for the next All Together now. After we beat the horrible Double Dragon 2, we'll just do like one episode where we co-op our way through this one. Or try to, because it's actually tricky given that there's no continues in this game. So, that might be interesting. But it's just a weird series. The progression of it is weird, some of it good, some of it bad. But I actually, honestly, still really like this. I don't know if Double Dragon 1 holds up all that well, but despite being similar to the formula in a lot of ways, I don't know. There's just something about this game that I still... you know, there are a lot of titles where I will say it plays better with nostalgia-tinted glasses on, and there are games that I have nostalgia-tinted glasses over that I'll go back to and be like, ooh, Double Dragon for the arcade was one of those. But this one, I still crack a smile when I play this game. Something about it is just still really fun. And I think that kind of speaks to the sort of odd history and pedigree that is Technos Japan in so many different ways, because they can make games that are in many ways very, very similar, and yet you'll play one and go, this doesn't hold up, and you'll play another one that's very similar, and you'll just be like, yeah, this one's actually where it's at, and this is what I remember and what I really enjoy. It's the strangest thing, and few other developers have that effect on me, at least when discussing them in a retro context. But yeah, that is Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, developed by Technos Japan, may they rest in peace, and published by Acclaim Entertainment, may they, well, rest, I guess, based on the last few years of their work. This came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1989, I believe. Maybe 88. It's either 88 or 89. And I'm actually playing this on the Wii Virtual Console, where you can get it. Despite the fact that Acclaim and Technos are both gone, Axis Games actually released this on Virtual Console, I'm presuming with Million's permission. But it's yeah, it's available there, and this is a really good way to play it, actually, because you can just do it with your Wii remotes, because NES is only a 2-button system. This is probably the way to play it, and I think it's good. If you know, it's a good entry into brawlers. Not the best, but far from the worst, and something that just puts a smile on my face, which is not what I can say about its predecessor. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.